Hey y'all, it's been a little bit, but I'm back with a stack of comics, although this might still be a brief episode. If you're wondering where my hat is, I loaned it to a friend because she had to go to an Orville Peck concert. And, yeah, but it will be back next time. But yeah, let's start off talking about the one I just read, Blood Squad 7 by Joe Casey. Um, so, what is Blood Squad 7? It's a kind of interesting concept, and I would say an admirable concept. It's Young Blood with the serial number filed off, which, by the way, I thought was called Young Bloods. That's like a Berenstein universe thing. I guess it's because Linkara says Young Blood's disease, but the comic is just called Young Blood. I've been calling it Young Bloods forever. But anyway, Image and Rob Liefeld no longer own the rights to Young Blood. I don't know who owns it, but somebody else owns it. And Joe Casey wanted to reinvent the Image Comics shared universe that the early Image comics had when it was, Spawn, Youngblood, and all that shit. And he wanted, it was sort of a failed experiment. Like they tried to do their own shared universe with different creators, each owning their own characters. So like the Marvel universe, if each artist owned the characters they drew, and it just didn't really work because if someone left the company, then that character's gone. Or if I write my story that just doesn't fit your story, we're not coordinating on that. There wasn't a lot of editorial organization that was making the shared universe really make sense. And it just kind of fell apart over time. It still technically exists. Radiant Black, the Kyle Higgins has said that Radiant Black is in the Image shared universe. So whatever that means. But this is an attempt to return to the original Image comic shared universe with a new Youngblood story with just the serial numbers filed off. And we're not calling it Youngblood, we're calling it Blood Squad 7, and all the characters are technically new characters, but they're kind of inspired by those like 90s heroes that are edgy and violent. There's also a kind of Sandman-esque character in there too, which I think is clever because like when we talk about 90s comics, everyone thinks of Youngblood and Spawn and Clone Saga and the 90s sucked. But Sandman and stuff was happening in the 90s too. Like there were, other stuff happening. But this is set in the modern day, so it's like a sequel to Youngblood, but also a fresh comic. It does not feel like a 90s comic so much as it feels like a 2000s comic. And it reads a lot like the Ultimates or the Authority, which was kind of the Youngblood of the 2000s. It reads a lot like Authority. So a pretty bold experiment, a pretty interesting idea. I respect it. I support it. Didn't care for the comic though. It was fine. It was fine, but I never read Youngblood. I never read Image comics back in the day, and I wasn't like the biggest fan of Authority and stuff. Like, I mean, I liked it when I was a kid, when it was, I liked Authority and Ultimates when they were coming out back when I was a teenager, but they're not my favorite comics now. I'm certainly not reading them these days. So yeah, if you're into those kind of comics, I think I've given you a good enough pitch that you might want to read it. There is sort of a meta thing going on too, which is like, oh, the Blood Squad 7 is returning after, decades. And it's like, we're going to reinvent the way the Blood Squad 7 was. And they like show like toy commercials and they mention Todd Toys, which if you know what that is, it's funny. But yeah, so there's like meta commentary of like, we're going to do things different than we did in the 90s, even though there's this 90s nostalgia, which is neat. But it just didn't wow me. It just didn't wow me. But you might like it. If that sounds up your alley, check it out. If you like 90s comics or the 2000s comics, check it out. Immortal Thor, I got a nice Art Adams variant cover. You can see a Art Adams Spider Ham behind me. I got a Spider-Man puzzle on my wall. Art did. But had to get Art's... it's funny, I was talking about 90s comics. Angela was originally a Spawn character. Look up the crazy legal issues that led to her being in Marvel. But anyway, love Art Adams. I like his monsters and sexy girls. Has very little to do with the comic itself, but I got the Art Adams variant. I got nothing more to say about Immortal Thor. It's great. Read it. I'm not going to repeat myself. Everything I've said before is still true. Story's still going great. Keep reading it. Sensational She-Hulk. This is the culmination of the entire She-Hulk story that not the culmination, but like it's the next big chapter of Rainbow Rowell's She-Hulk uh, romance, and I've become very invested in this romance and in Jack of Hearts, a character I never gave a shit about before. Another '90s character, I think. Um, she's made me love him. She's made me care about him. She's made me want him to be with She-Hulk. And in this story, you find out if their relationship's going to go to the next level. It's really good romance, and it's adult romance, which is nice. It feels adult and relatable as an adult. Um, yeah, I highly recommend it. Go back and read She-Hulk and then Sensational She-Hulk. They retitled it and reset it to number one, but it is just the same writer and the same artist and the same story. There was no reason to reset it. Definitely check it out. It's wonderful, and this issue was great. Uh, Rogue Sun. This is really cool. This is something you can only do in comics. Been waiting forever for a new issue of Rogue Sun. So check out the cover, and we're gonna flip it. It's two stories using the same art with different dialogue. So it's the same story from two different characters' perspective. You get Marcus's perspective and Dylan's perspective, and you get to see how they're both failing each other by not listening to each other. Because like the dialogue will be the same, but the thought bubbles are covering up the dialogue because they're not listening to each other saying. And we get to see it's really cool. It's a real clever idea. I love this. And then the final page is a pretty big teaser for what's to come, and really makes me curious to see where the story's going. I don't know if I've talked about Rogue Sun before. Rogue Sun is if you like Avatar, it's a weird comparison because it's like it's set in modern reality, but it is very similar to Avatar, and then it's like a legacy hero who can speak to the ghosts of the previous people who carried the mantle, sort of like how Avatar Aang can speak to Avatar Roku. But in this case, the previous Rogue Sun was his father. So his deadbeat dad, who he didn't get along with when he was alive, is now dead. And now he's got his dad's ghost following him around. He's like, I don't want this guy around. I don't like my father didn't raise me. Now I have to talk to him every day. But they have to help each other to, protect the world from these monsters. It's set in New Orleans, and the villains are all vampires and werewolves and wizards. So it's got this like cool gothic aesthetic to it. It's like this like goth sorcery superheroes. Rogue Sun is very knight themed. He has a sword and armor. But it's a really fucking good story. I sat down and read like the first 12 issues all in one go. Just so excited. It's by Ryan Parrott, who was my favorite Power Rangers writer before he left Power Rangers. It's part of the Massiverse. So if you like, it connects to Radiant Black. I mean, it doesn't connect to Radiant Black, but him and Radiant Black have an annual crossover, which I'll be talking about next month, I believe. So yeah, it's excellent. Rogue Sun is one of the coolest comics in the stands right now. Like I would say it's a kind of a tie between Rogue Sun and Radiant Black for me on my favorite ongoing series. Definitely check it out. And this issue was so friggin' cool. It's actually a pretty good issue if you want to read this issue, and then if you like it, go back and read it from the beginning. This is a pretty good taste of what the comic's like. Minor Threats All the Way Down. No, the Fastest Way Down. Yeah. I think I've talked about this before. It's Patton Oswalt and Jordan Bloom's new superhero or supervillain universe, and it's great. Every single issue has so many ideas. It's just bursting with life. You can tell that Patton and Jordan have spent like their entire lives reading superhero comics and having cool ideas for superhero comics, and now they finally get to like just overfill every issue of the comic with these crazy ideas. And they're so enthusiastic, and also they're they're older guys. They've lived. Actually, I don't know how old Jordan Bloom is, but Patton Oswalt, he's an older guy, and you can see like it's like really good superhero comics, but it's also just really good human storytelling. Like they have something to say about the human experience. These characters feel very real, and it's just damn good writing. The artwork's fantastic too. Every page has like cool details in the background, like kaiju prints where like a monster like wrecked the city like months ago and no one's cleaned it up, like shit like that. Fantastic comic. There's even a bunch of spin-offs coming out. One has already come out. Another one's there's Gail Simone said she's working on something in this universe. It hasn't been officially announced, but she's tweeted about it. It's like Gail Simone working with Patton Oswalt. That's exciting. Definitely check out Minor Threats if you love superheroes, because I mean these are guys with something to say. They're telling real stories and in the superhero genre, stories about a human drama, a human life. A lot of this has to do with like divorce and raising kids, but also with these like wild, cool superhero ideas. It's fantastic. Might be running out of battery life. This story might be a show. This video might get cut short. I'm watching the number go up. This is the end of Cobra Commander. Good miniseries. Good final issue. I don't have anything to say about it that I haven't said already. I'm excited to see where the Undrawn universe goes, but it was a good finale. And we'll see where Destro goes, which is going to continue the story next month. Wonder Woman. Also have nothing to say about it that I haven't said. It's excellent. Great issue. I'm enjoying where this story's going. Check it out. I'm not rushing because of the battery. I really don't have anything to say about those that I haven't said already. So watch my past videos. New issue of Void Rivals, mostly centered around Transformers stuff, as you can see from the cover. But it's a pretty good issue. Artwork is still excellent. Yeah, still a great comic. Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, final issue. This series was everything you could want out of this crossover. You got all of the DC heroes, all of the DC kaiju, all of the MonsterVerse kaiju. It just went ham. They did spoil my favorite thing in one of the covers, but I won't spoil it for you. Something really cool happens with Kong. But I will say this. Beast Boy turns into a Kong, which is cool. I love that. They killed off some DC heroes, which is weird. I guess it's not canon, so we can kill off a couple of Green Lanterns. Who cares? It was just weird that like 3 Justice League members died at the end, and it was like, I guess they're dead. Weird. Anyway, and then finally, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. This finally returns us to the Solar Rangers, who I feel like were teased recently, and we were going to get like to find out who they were and learn more about them. And then it didn't happen. And I went and checked. It was not recently. It was years ago. It was issue 50. This is issue 120. We've had so many issues since the last time we saw these guys. They're cool characters. I wanted to learn more about them, but I don't know what happened behind the scenes that might have prevented that. We're finally getting to meet them here, and it's pretty good. I'm still not loving this storyline, but I like to finally get to see the Solar Rangers and learn a bit about them. Also added some new LGBT characters to the Power Rangers canon. There was already a lesbian couple in the Solar Rangers, and now we find out there's a gay couple too. Pretty nice. Always fun to see some more diversity in the Rangers, because Power Rangers is about diversity. If that makes you mad, sorry, that's what it's about. It's about, the United States of Benetton. That's Power Rangers. It's what it's always been. They saw the rainbow and they ran with it. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But I'm still not loving this storyline. But this was one of the better issues. I think this is probably my favorite issue of this storyline, for what that's worth. And that's all I got for you today. I guess I managed to finish this video before I ran out of battery life. Love you all. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.